All right, Laura, here's a critique for your first two projects. Panning here is actually, I think, pretty interesting. This is sharp and this stuff all goes blurry. I think the grayscale works pretty well. I like this, there's this line here that's not, it's a diagonal and it seems pretty interesting and blurry, but pretty dynamic photograph. The horizon may be out just a little bit, but I think it's engaging, and I think I actually like it better in black and white. There's not too much color here, but I think it just simplified it a little bit enough. So it's a little stronger in black and white. This painting with light image, just to me, I see the strength of painting with light being the relationship between the objective and this, very subjective light source. And here I just have all this light, and it's I don't know. I'm not as engaged with the photograph. It's kind of an interesting form, but I have nothing to relate it to, and not as interesting for me as this is like the action that you got here. I think is pretty visually interesting, but the surrounding information is kind of distracting. I think it just might be the position, because I like the relationship of the shininess of the stuff, and then the shininess of these, the sink over here, and the gas things that come out, and this table, I think, are interesting. I think you could have capitalized it, simply putting this object somewhere else in that table. Doesn't mean all this stuff would have not been in the frame, but just a different visual relationship to what's going on here, I think would have helped quite a bit. So it has good elements, but I think they need to be repositioned and reorganized, recomposed. Yeah, same with the color. I kind of like that little streak in that color. Oh, this is pretty good. I think the composition is good. I like the sugar and the pouring, seeing the fingers and things like that. This almost seems to me almost like part of a narrative or something like that. But I think it's an interesting composition. So, all right, let's move on and find your first project. And these were, I think I commented on this one below, perhaps, but I think it's a really nice photograph. It's one of those where it's slightly overexposed, but that works out really well. That really intense light there and along the figure here, emphasizes things, becomes a focal point, and is actually really successful, as well as the rest of the composition. And, works, and it's just a really nice photograph. So good job with that. I also like this one. I like this framing, using this framing, the circle, and this desert, and the sun just coming through a little bit here, and of course the figure here, you being there. I think they all come together to create a really nice, effective, compelling photograph, self-portrait. It's a good job. This one I don't think is quite as successful with this sort of blown out highlights. I'd like it to be a little less intensity in the light here. I think the composition is good. I think you sit here at the suitcase and in all this landscape. I like that visual relationship, and it certainly does communicate something about you, self-portrait. But I think the exposure is just a little too much, and we need to back off, shorter shutter speed, or smaller aperture, or smaller ISO number, something along those lines. Could help this. Just too white. Might be able to bring it back in Photoshop a little bit. This one is I think overexposed a little bit too. I'm trying to figure out the softness though. If this is coming from, is there sunlight, fogging it going into the lens is what it seems like. We have this, I kind of like the light here. This is where a lens hood would have potentially come in useful. I actually really like the composition again. I like seeing the two sides of the face with the mirror here. I think that's really effective. You know, it almost looks like, you know, in some ways, two different expressions on here, though it's not. This one seems a little bit softer, and this is a little more direct. And that directness gives it an intensity, and here it's not so intense because it's looking away. So I think it's very effective use of composition, mirror, and all that. But I wish the light wasn't so harsh here, and if we could soften that up a little bit. So, all right. I think overall you really have a good sense of composition, and maybe need to work on some of the technical aspects of exposure a little bit, or maybe it was intentful and you like that aesthetic, and I'm just not agreeing with that, something along that lines. But you know, keep going. I'm looking forward to seeing the last two projects. All right, and we'll be looking at these. Project 2. Did enjoy the anthotypes. This, you know, usually I don't like the painting of light without anything recognizable, any interaction. I like the interaction of the light with something objective. This is actually pretty interesting all on its own, just this red circle and these light streaks going across, and I think there's something there, something somewhat successful there, and actually trying to decide if I like if this one's as successful or not. I think I like kind of the simplicity of the first one better than this one. It's a very nice photograph. You know, I kind of like how all the other people are blurry and her looking back, and she's sharp, and there's nice light there, and the look. The photographer seems a very sort of intimate moment in a sense. You know, there's a relationship between, you know, the photographer and her, and that comes across very strongly, and it seems, you know, very nice. So I think well composed, well captured, good photograph, and it gets a sense that we're looking in on someone's personal life in a sense. So I find that interesting. All right, so this panning image is, I think, successful. She is sharp, and then the background goes a little blurry. I think this would actually be better if we had even slower shutter speed on here, which would make it even more difficult to maintain her sharpness, but it would make the background a little bit blurrier, and I think that could be a little bit more interesting to push. So, but it's all right. It's not as good as certainly some of the images, as compelling. You know, this one seems kind of funny and maybe fun, and it's okay. I'm not sure. You know, there's, you know, certainly humor going on with this, and then the blurriness, but maybe almost better if the other people were more blurry. Kind of similar criticism what I have in the other one, or something. It's okay. It's not. This image I think is really effective here. I like this. I like all the elements that we see here. I like the moving figure here, and the diagonalness of the bed, losing the clock, all these things. I think this is a really effective photograph, very interesting, engaging, and introduces me into ideas and stuff where maybe the previous two didn't do that so much. This one I think is also pretty good. I think we could, I'm trying to figure out how to crop it. I think we can get rid of some of this stuff in here. Like, I don't like this and this. I don't find this kind of distracting here. If I crop it here, it kind of helps the image. But I like what I see with like the one leg here and then all this motion around it. I think is visually engaging. And then the very sort of banal setting. Maybe there's certainly something to that. Yeah, I don't know if this is much different than the previous one. Still needs cropping on that right-hand side. Here's a compelling image. I really like this one. So, you know, the camera, slight odd angle, the figure lying down. This, I think, is one of those rare images where having the horizon slightly off is actually quite helpful and intriguing, and it looks like something happened, and it wasn't good, and lying down. So I think the other panning image might be a little more interesting, but this is technically successful. So I think this image works in black and white or color. I kind of like this one in black and white a little bit better. This one, the darkness I think was good in the color one, but here it just seems a little too dark, and I'd want to adjust that a little bit. I'm not sure. It's a little bit different composition than I think the previous one. I think I like it a little bit better. Alright, well, let's see if we can find your first project. Finally getting a hang of where they put all this stuff in Flickr. They moved it all around. You're really playful with your images, and that's, I think, a good thing. And I'm hoping it's something that you actually capitalize on with the final project. So, yeah, I actually really like this image. It's very simple, but it's also very intriguing. Just everything in there. There's somewhat odd elements. The figure here, and then the lacrosse stick, and this environment, and then you gaze over here, and there's just a little oddness in all this stuff, and I think that is good. I'm curious. And here's, I think, another rare image where it actually works upside down. It's blatantly upside down, but it seems, you play with it so well. You play with this sort of oddity so well in this image. I don't think it came across as well in some of those other images from the last set, but here they do. Usually tricks like this, just turn the photograph upside down, don't function. This one does, and it's interesting, and it's funny, and it's curious, and it's almost believable in the direction that it is for some reason. I don't know why that is. But, I think it's something that you should keep pushing and exploring, certainly for your final portfolio. I'm not sure, I can't remember what the direction was you were going, but it would be good. This one, I wish the figure, I like the composition again. Playing with that, I wish this was a little bit sharper and the blades were softer. That'd be good, but I think it's still good. I don't know. I could be wrong. It might be better this way. One of those things I'd like to see both of them and then make a choice. So, and I think we already looked at this image and talked about it. So. All right. Good job. Looking forward to seeing more images and what you do. Good. All right.